It is now my pleasure to give final remarks to the graduating class of 2026, President Andrés Acebo.
I want everyone in this arena to take this moment in. Look around you. Look at the community that you belong to. Not anchored down, fluid, because it'll travel with you everywhere you go. You bring the spirit of our noble mission with you. Really take this in. Members of the Board of Trustees, members of the NJCU Foundation, our distinguished and incomparable faculty, you've taught me so very much. To our staff, our incredible staff, you've carried me so often. Our distinguished guests, elected officials, dignitaries, alumni, families, loved ones, and friends, my dear colleagues and my beloved team, and most importantly, the incomparable class of 2026. All 1,551 of you. All 1,551 of you. Soon, each of you will cross this stage, and trailing behind you, behind each of those 1,551 names, will be stories of individual grit, persistence, and promise, fulfilled for a class predominantly made of first-generation and working-class scholars. Nearly a third of you will be graduating with the distinction of honors. Yes. Class of 2026, my beloved New Jersey City University community and family, there is something profoundly humbling about getting to stand at this podium before you and getting to bear witness to this. Because in many ways, our journeys began together. And to my blessing, it will be forever linked. When I first stepped into this presidency, I arrived young by every conventional measure of leadership. But I arrived as a proud son of Hudson County, a first-generation son of immigrants and exiles, a proud product of this community's public schools, who understood intimately what institutions like this mean to families like ours. Families who do not inherit networks or privilege or certainty. Families who inherit something different. They inherit sacrifice and faith, the quiet and audacious belief that education might become the bridge between survival and dignity. But for me, this institution was never abstract. It was always personal, long before it became professional. You see, my loved ones, my family, earned degrees from this institution, including one who I promised I would not shout out today. And its alumni helped shape the trajectory of my own life. Alums of this institution poured something into me, believed in something before I even felt it myself. And the values of this university, service, resilience, access, dignity, were not things I first encountered after getting to become your president. They were, like you, already woven into the people who raised me, mentored me, and believed in me long before I was ever allowed to stand at a podium like this. And here's the truth. I didn't arrive here alone. because no one ever does. I arrived here carrying my father's improbable journey on a raft, seeking freedom to this country with little more than courage and hope. I arrived carrying my mother's prayers y sus bendiciones. I carried the dreams of generations who believed their children might one day stand in rooms they themselves were never permitted to enter. And at the same moment, many of you were beginning your own journey on this incredible place. Some of you arrived uncertain whether you belonged, carrying responsibilities beyond your years, arriving from neighborhoods where our dreams are often taught to whisper instead of roar. And now, there's something deeply moving about knowing that my own young children stand only one generation removed from survival and opportunity. This work, this day, has been a heartfelt effort to honor that responsibility to them and to you. I have relished watching my children walk our campus beside you, watching them see you cross our classrooms and our buildings with backpacks slung over tired shoulders, watching them sit in our hallways and classrooms, watching them exist with you. And perhaps without even fully understanding it yet, they have learned something powerful, class of 2026, something that I will be indebted for the rest of my life to you. That greatness does not only live in famous places, that it lives here too, in public institutions, in working families, in communities too often overlooked, in the quiet heroism of ordinary people who refuse to surrender their hope. And now, through the work of many hands, here we are, you and I, standing together at the close of one chapter and at the edge of another. You as the final graduating class of New Jersey City University, and me as one of its final stewards before our university enters its second century. There's something almost sacred about that symmetry. We inherited questions, class of 2026, about whether this institution would survive, questions about whether public trust, public service, and public faith could endure in an age increasingly defined by cynicism and fracture. And yet together, we chose belief anyway. This milestone, class of 26, was not born of ease. It was forged in faith, tested, stretched, and strained. But this community did not turn away. It leaned in and drew closer. You chose to continue through pandemic and hardship and exhaustion, and this university chose to fight for its future with the same determination generations before us once fought to build it. Which is why today feels larger than ceremony, class of 2026. It feels like testimony. Testimony to a community that refused to turn away when the weight of preserving this mission felt heavily upon it. Testimony to faculty who teach beyond the syllabus, to staff who lift what could not afford to falter, to students whose aspirations give our campus its purpose and its power. Today, this morning arrives bringing more than sunlight. It arrives carrying memory. Memory of a class launched in 1927 on the then Hudson Boulevard, when this nation was racing toward uncertainty and transformation. And here we are, on the precipice of our nation's 250th birthday. And we still find the courage to believe that ordinary people deserve extraordinary opportunity. Ours is not a campus or a university built for the privileged, but for the children of laborers, educators, immigrants, veterans, caretakers, bus drivers, nurses, police officers, cafeteria workers, and dreamers who carried ambition and aspiration. Our campus was never built for comfort, class of 2026. It was built for striving. Built for the west side of the Hudson River, where a skyline stands close enough for us to see, but far enough to remind generations of working people that proximity to power is not the same thing as access to it. And for nearly a century, this university has kept widening the gates of possibility anyway. That belief built our community, class of 2026. And for nearly a century, this campus has been holy ground for strivers, not privileged people, but determined people. Through the Great Depression and the New Deal, through wars that remade nations and the uneasy peace that followed them, through civil rights marches that expanded the meaning of democracy itself, through towers that rose and fell just across the river from our campus, through pandemics, economic distress, and recovery. This university kept faith with its founding purpose, to open doors wider than circumstances would otherwise allow. Because this campus has always been inseparable from the city of Jersey City itself. A city of docks and rail lines and row houses, a city where dozens of languages drift through schoolyards and storefronts, a city built by immigrants and migrants and working people who crossed oceans, borders, rivers, and neighborhoods, carrying little more than faith in tomorrow. A city that remains one of the most diverse and densely populated communities in our country. And right here, on the west side of the Hudson, this university has stood as a public anchor to that story. A declaration that the children of our communities deserve not merely survival, but possibility. This campus has always been more than a university. It has been a living chronicle of Jersey City itself. Resilient, restless, diverse, unfinished, forever becoming. We know that talent is universal even when opportunity is not. That the daughter of an aide and the son of a laborer possess the same infinite worth as anyone born into wealth or privilege. That's what higher education at its best represents. Not merely instruction, but transformation. Class of 2026, generation after generation have been transformed by our campus. Faculty who believed in students before they believed in themselves, staff who held this place together through its hardest days, family who sacrificed quietly so their children could sit in classrooms they themselves never had the chance to enter. And now, nearly a century later, you gather as our final graduating class. The last class to cross this stage beneath these initials. The class to receive a degree bearing this name. But we know this too. We don't end today, New Jersey City University. We commence. And somehow, fittingly, perhaps the most necessary class this institution has ever produced. Because history, class of 2026, has a way of summoning particular people for particular moments. And history has summoned you. Not because the world is stable, not because democracy feels certain, not because our institutions are trusted, but precisely because so much feels fragile. And I need you to understand something today. The world desperately needs people who know how to persist, to know how to continue anyway. Because you graduate into a world suffering from a crisis deeper than politics or economics. Too many have forgotten how to see one another. We have mastered connection, but forgotten communion. We have access to infinite information, but diminishing wisdom. We can reach people across oceans in seconds and still fail to truly know our neighbors. You graduate into a world exhausted by division, a world connected by technology but starving for humanity, a world where cynicism is marketed as wisdom and cruelty too often mistaken for strength, a world where loneliness grows in crowded rooms, where too many people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. That is the world waiting for you, class of 2026. Not a perfect world, a wounded world, a wounded one. And wounded worlds require healing people, which is why your degree matters far beyond your profession. I stand before you more hopeful than ever because I know who's graduating from New Jersey City University today. I know the people this campus produces. I know the quiet heroism that's walked our halls and sat in our classrooms. I know the student who takes the light rail right before dawn after working the overnight shift so she can make it to class before 8 a.m. I know the mother who writes Blackboard discussion board posts from a hospital waiting room while caring for a sick loved one. I know the father who attends class with steel-toed boots still dusted from a construction site. I know the first-generation student translating FAFSA forms for their family while simultaneously trying to understand a future nobody has ever taught them how to navigate. I know the student veteran who returned from carrying the weight of war only to discover that building a life sometimes requires the same courage. I know the aspiring teacher who will walk into a classroom this September and meet a child carrying chaos, believing they are invisible until your belief changes the trajectory of their life. I know the nursing student who will, somewhere, someday, in the middle of the night, when machines hum softly in a darkened hospital room and fear hangs in the air, will find patients and frightened loved ones searching for reassurance in your face, and your calm presence will become medicine too. I know the future social workers and counselors who will interrupt generations of trauma through one act of love. I know the future entrepreneurs and public servants who will reinvest in neighborhoods others abandoned and create beauty where cynicism affected decline. I know the artists, writers, and creators who, in an age drowning in noise and algorithms, will remind humanity how to feel again. And perhaps most importantly, I know so many of you will do this without applause, which is precisely why your lives will matter so much. Class of 2026, New Jersey City University, never mistake visibility for significance. Because the truth is this: most people will never be handed the authority to change the world, but every single living soul in this arena possesses the power to bring a world of change to someone else's life. Do not underestimate the magnitude of small acts done faithfully over time. We survive, we endure, we progress because ordinary people decide to care for one another every single day. That's the great secret history rarely teaches, class of 2026, because history too often just footnotes the noble. It remembers presidents and generals, titans of industry, masters of spectacle, and our present too often adorns celebrity and influencers with millions of followers, confusing visibility for virtue and attention for significance. But society has always depended upon teachers who stay late, nurses who stay calm, parents and loved ones who stay present, neighbors who stay kind, public servants who stay honest, and ordinary people who refuse to let the world grow colder. That is leadership, perhaps in its purest form. And if these final years have taught me anything, it is this: leadership is not the privilege of position. It is the decision to remain responsible for one another. The people who change the world, class of 2026, are rarely the loudest people in the room. They're usually the people willing to carry responsibility longer than others are willing to carry discomfort. The ones willing to keep building after disappointment, keep striving after indignity, keep loving after heartbreak, keep believing after cynicism would seem easier. You've already demonstrated that capacity. Many of you began your college journey amid a pandemic that altered your adolescence, your families, and your understanding of certainty itself. You learned what loneliness sounds like, what anxiety feels like at 2 a.m., what grief feels like when it settles over an entire community all at once. And yet here you are, not untouched by hardship, but undefeated by it. Class of 2026, that distinction matters. Because resilience is not pretending pain never happened. Resilience is refusing to allow pain to have the final word. I learned that lesson long before I ever became your university president. I learned it in a home where faith was not theoretical, but lived. Where mommy and papi would remind me again and again, lo que está para ti, nadie te lo quita. What is meant for you, no one can take away. Not rejection, not disappointment, not delay, not fear. And my abuela, with the wisdom that only time and hardship can produce, would say, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you walk with and I will tell you who you are. You see, growing up, I thought she was speaking about friendship. But life teaches you she was really talking about character, about whom you choose to stand beside, who you choose to become responsible for, who you refuse to abandon. Graduate, that lesson matters more than ever because the world you are entering will constantly tempt you to confuse success with significance. It will encourage you to accumulate followers instead of community, attention instead of wisdom, power instead of purpose. But your life will ultimately be shaped by what and who you chose to walk with. Walk with people who enlarge your humanity. Walk with people who deepen your conscience. Walk with people who remind you that ambition without compassion is emptiness dressed as accomplishment. And above all, walk with those who help you remain tender in a world trying desperately to harden you. Class of 2026, soon your campus, your alma mater, will enter a new chapter. Names will change. Structures will evolve. Leadership may transition. But mission endures. The mission endures because of you. Gothic Knights, carry it forward and always come back to lift others behind you who find their first footings on the campus that shaped your story. Because the soul of this place was never a logo or a signpost. It has always been the people who teach, learn, labor, and love here. That sacred work endures. Because New Jersey City University has always been more than a name or a place. It's been a promise sustained by generations who believed higher education could alter the direction of a life. A promise carried by immigrants and laborers and educators and dreamers who insisted their children deserve access to possibility. What will endure most are the lives you touch. That's always been the real measure of our community, of our campus. Human beings, lives transformed, doors opened, communities strengthened, hope restored. That's the inheritance. That's the responsibility, class of 2026. Carry it forward with special distinction as the last class to have entered to learn and exited to serve. And so today, once again, standing at the edge of history, as you leave this arena and step into a complicated and aching world, I ask something of you. Please, please do not become numb. The world will tempt you to. It will tell you compassion is weak, that tenderness is naive, that empathy is inefficient, that only the ruthless rise. Don't you believe that for a second. Do not become smaller in response to small people. Do not allow algorithms to strip you of empathy. Do not confuse ambition with worth. Do not become so distracted chasing a life that you forget to build one. When you encounter suffering, and you will, do not look away. Move toward people. Move toward pain. Move toward service. Because the measure of a life is not how much power we accumulate, it's how many people breathe easier because we existed. Class of 2026, some of the strongest people you will ever encounter are gentle. Some of the most transformative people you will ever encounter are kind. And some of the most important work you will ever do will happen in rooms no camera will ever enter, marked by one conversation, one vote, one act of courage. History changes that way too. Quietly at first, then all at once. And so graduates, class of 2026, build lives that make people feel seen. Build neighborhoods where children feel safe. Build institutions worthy of public trust. Build businesses that remember humanity. Build families rooted in dignity. Build communities nobody must earn the right to belong into. And when your moment comes, and surely it will, when the world asks whether you will contribute to its cruelty or its healing, choose healing again and again and again. Because your degree, class of 2026, was never meant just to prepare you for a career. It was to prepare you for stewardship, preparation to carry something larger than yourself, preparation to become the kind of person this moment in history requires. And perhaps one day, decades from now, someone will ask what was so special about the graduating class of New Jersey City University in 2026. And the answer will not simply be that you were the last. The answer, and I believe this with every fiber of my being, will be this: that you entered a fractured world and chose to mend it. That you inherited cynicism and answered with compassion. That you walked into cruelty and answered with humanity. That they understood greatness was never about prominence, but about presence. And that when history placed a wounded world into your hands, you didn't drop it, you carried it. That when others chose performance, you chose substance. When others chose outrage, you chose community. When others asked what the world owed them, you asked what you owed the world. Class of 2026, for nearly a century, your campus has stood on the west side of the Hudson River as a declaration that the children of working people deserved access to possibility. That declaration now lives inside each and every single one of you, all 1,551 of you. Yours is the class that carried forward nearly a century-old legacy and helped secure its future. Your degrees will bear the name New Jersey City University, but your legacy will live in the history of everything that comes next. You're the class that rebuilt the faith in what this university could become, and now the responsibility belongs to you to carry forward not merely the knowledge you earned here, but the humanity you lived here. Not merely ambition, but moral imagination. Not merely success, but stewardship. Because the world does not simply need more accomplished people, it needs more decent people, more courageous people, more people capable of protecting the dignity of others in an age desperately trying to strip it away. Class of 2026, if I can leave you with one final truth, I hope it's this. The purpose of your life is not merely to become somebody. It is to leave somebody else less afraid and more hopeful than they were before they encountered you. To widen possibility for another human being, to become the kind of presence that reminds people that goodness still exists. That's how our society endures and becomes more just. That's how our communities heal. That's how history bends, through ordinary people who decide every day to carry light into dark places. And now, at the threshold of our second century, this is my hope. May we meet it with the same courage that brought us here. May we honor the generations before us by building a future worthy of their labor. And may we remember, as this university always has, that education is not merely about advancement, it's about widening the circle of humanity and dignity, about insisting another person's life has value, about leaving the door open wider than we found it. Class of 2026, hope is not naive. Hope is discipline. Hope is love. And so graduates, when you leave this arena today, you will carry degrees into a wounded and waiting world, and I hope you remember this. You come from a university born from hope during uncertain times. You come from families who transformed sacrifice into opportunity. You come from communities that taught you resilience before the world ever called it leadership. And now you will carry every aspect of that forward. You, each and every one of you, are the bridge between your alma mater's first century and its second. You're the bridge between memory and possibility. You are the bridge between what this world is and what it still has time to become. So go heal this wounded world. Go dignify what has been neglected. Go love without abandoned. Go build what cynicism insists cannot be built. And when the nights grow long, when the burden feels heavy, when the world feels louder than your hope, remember this. Never grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Faith, class of 2026, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And you, time and time again, have ignited my faith, and I thank and love you for that. Every generation is eventually asked the same question. Will you surrender your hope or become it for another? And I believe with all my heart that you already know the answer. Class of 2026, go forward. Don't let anyone tell you to wait your turn to repair what has been left broken. Let your lives become evidence that grace, courage, mercy, and love still possess the power to transform everything. Congratulations, class of 2026. May God bless you. Que Dios lo bendiga siempre. And thank you for allowing me the honor of walking beside you in this chapter of our history.